The greatest podcast in the world. The greatest podcast in the world. Look at the boy bands.
Friday nights.
Rules that were available. Rules that were available.
Friday nights.
Rules.
Look at the boy bands.
Rules that were available.
Portly Gentlemen's Podcast.
There we go. Hello and welcome to the Portly Gentlemen's Podcast. Tonight we've got myself, Cameron, Michael, Calan, Seth, and Paine with a special guest, Jeromy on guitar.
Cheers.
Boys.
And our subject tonight is the red pill and just how much of it you want to take, I suppose. So starting off, I suppose, like it all comes from, like the concept of the red pill basically comes from, like you were saying before, the Matrix. So obviously, like the blue pill is staying in Wonderland and believing everything you see around you is just as it is, and the red pill is kind of seeing through it. So I got some kind of definitions here that I thought were like pretty decent definitions. So blue pilled, so we believe how the world is and should be as the media says, and we just take it at face value. And then my kind of definitions taken from a few different places. One of them was Michael Malice does a really good job of describing this. But yeah, red pilled would roughly define red pill as the awareness that what is presented as truth in the government, media, and schools and universities is not only false, but is a carefully constructed facade, only there to be furthering a specific narrative and is actually orchestrated for a specific agenda. So I suppose where I kind of wanted to start was just talking about like what are some like red pill moments for you guys? Like for me, I suppose one of my big ones was, I don't know, whenever it was, 9/11 happened. And then all of the sweet documentaries that came out after that, and like looking at that and just having my mind totally blown.
Where were you on 9/11? I've got to ask that question. I've heard it so much of late. Where were you?
I wasn't in New York
when 9/11 hit.
I was not on a plane heading towards the Pentagon because there was no planes heading towards the Pentagon.
That's what they all say.
But yeah, like for me, that was definitely it. Like watching some of those like 9/11 truther documentaries, and like, I mean, these days I'll probably watch them and be a lot more skeptical. But as like a fucking 15-year-old kid, especially, yeah, like having that moment of being like, oh fuck, is everything I see around me a lie, kind of thing.
And we grew up in the time of the Matrix and stuff, like got well into it. So it's like it puts that idea in your head straight up. All right, what's the oh fuck, is it the cable guy or the one with
Truman Show?
The Truman Show.
Truman Show.
Yeah, that's definitely another like good example of like red pill, you know, like where he finally realizes.
Guys, that is the example.
Yeah.
The one that is the most accurate type of scenario you're talking about here.
Yeah, for sure.
Truman Show, man. Yeah.
And it made me so paranoid.
When you even get that concept in your head, it fucking stays in your head. I always have like think about like, you motherfuckers watching me right now.
Yeah, dude.
I do a sweet
It's all
dance
planned.
Yeah, and I suppose like that's kind of what I'm talking about, in just that, like, you know, that there are these moments or like these little things we see in the news or whatever where we're like how much of what we're told and like actually changes like the way that we think and that, and like creates internally in ourselves like a new reality. And maybe what we've heard and maybe like what we've been told isn't actually like real, you know? It's not real in the first place.
That's the red pill, right?
Yeah, basically, yeah.
Yeah. So what I'm hearing is that you've got one perspective is where you just everything, you go with the flow, you take everything for granted. And the other one is you cast doubt on all these concepts like the politicians and warlords and big companies, and you just disregard
essentially
that,
what
really.
you're told. Yeah.
Yeah.
The source from the outside. That's the
Yeah,
way
so I mean,
you-
it's a weird one, right? So like one example of this would be like propaganda. So like obviously like propaganda, like everybody kind of understands the concept of propaganda, and there was actually like laws made. I think I can't remember who it was. I think like under like Roosevelt or somebody in the United States, where they banned the U.S. government from essentially like interfering with media outlets. And so like that's been banned for a really long time. And then under Obama in 2013, so this is called the Smith-Mundt Act, which was the banning of propaganda, like government propaganda, by being given to the mainstream media and then being propagated as the truth. Now in 2012, it was actually, they overturned it, or they actually changed it. It wasn't overturned. So it was called the Smith-Mundt Modernization Act of 2012, which allowed for materials produced by the State Department and the Broadcasting Board of Governors to be disseminated widely and spread within the United States. So essentially, they had a law against propagandizing their own people. And then in 2012, that law was changed.
Government advertising themselves, you're talking about?
Well, essentially, like the government being able to put out information and then it being disseminated by like media companies as the truth.
Yeah.
So, like if we're talking about like war in Afghanistan, war in Iraq, these kinds of things, there was laws against lying about that stuff, basically. And then in 2012, with the changing of the Smith-Mundt Act,
Is that because of the CIA though?
It made it legal because of that act to then actually for them to do that. So,
yeah.
But yeah, like I don't know. So that was the US.
Yeah.
But like we don't have laws against that.
Can I say this is the red pill?
Yeah, it's because we're
side,
so
right?
fucking good, man. Jeez.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's right.
We got
Yeah,
trust.
so so one of the things that I thought was interesting was there's like something called like super normal stimulus, which is like so they did this experiment, right? So super normal stimulus like is all over the place. So it's the same thing as the scientists that design Doritos, where they are like down to the molecule changing every single thing, so that you basically to try and force you to not be able to stop. Like the whole thing of like once you pop, you can't stop with like fucking Pringles or whatever. Like that shit's real. Like there's scientists that do everything that they can to manipulate your body.
Marketing's huge.
Yeah,
because
yeah.
Like
they get outsold by the people who do.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
It's so crazy how in depth it goes too these days. Like the whole concept of it and how far it's gone in the short amount of years. Like you can't imagine what marketing was like 100 years ago to what it is now. Like where they fucking just find all your habits and stuff.
Yeah.
Oh,
Marketing
They're
was
like drawing fucking chalk on a blackboard and going. Like,
Substances, everything.
what was that, Seth? What was that, Patey?
It's just like marketing isn't just selling addictive substances; it's selling everything. Like most of my jobs
man.
have
Like
customer service based. I have lied to so many people about so many things, and like bullshit things that you would never think you have to lie to someone about. But because it's like a business and they then have to pass this on to their customers, you're just lying about so much shit. It's ridiculous.
and they train you to do that.
Yeah.
Too.
Like we have 2 factories, one in like Coolum here in Sunny Coast and one in Ballina down in New South Wales.
Yeah.
We're not allowed to tell customers we have another factory because they sell themselves as a Sunshine Coast based company.
Yeah. So it's like that's the selling thing. Is like, oh, we're local.
Well, likely owned and operated. Yeah.
And so like there's some customers
It
that
is
know
good
and
tips.
some that don't. And so you constantly just keep trying to keep track of like who's in the know, who's not.
Yeah.
But because if our company didn't do that, they'd get outsold by someone who did. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and I mean, like, and
Yeah,
so
it's
like,
a whole marketing ploy, man.
so Noam Chomsky
That's
talked
what-
about this in like manufacturing consent, basically, where he was talking about like the people that are in the news that are like they're essentially selling these wars and like selling all the major like political shifts and like shifts in thinking. All those people are there, and it's like, oh yeah, what, you think they're paid to like lie to us? It's like, no, they don't need to be paid to lie, because in the same way that like you're talking about, Chris, is like, well, you wouldn't have been able to get that job if
Yeah.
you weren't the kind of person that already was happy doing that.
I don't like what you're insinuating.
No,
there
Chris
about
is
me.
definitely a liar. I actually work with
That was
Chris.
pretty
And
harsh,
no,
man.
he's a liar.
Adam
Yeah,
is-
yeah, that's right.
He'll fib about the level of the milk. That's how bad it is.
Just for fun. He's a ruthless liar.
you got to fill your time.
I'm
Yeah,
there
yeah,
to
no, I
protect my
swear to
property.
God, there's toilet paper in there. It's fine.
Some other bugger's been in there and took a shit.
Yeah, that's my fucking.
Yeah,
I've got my own
that's definitely a
fucking
classic
toilet.
like job site and like warehouse thing. Is like, oh, who left the toilet like that?
Who did this?
You know, we've actually had to call the plumber in at our work toilet
Yeah, Jeremy clogged
with
it
a
up.
sponger. Yeah, no, one of the most infamous incidents in our workplace history.
I did a construction site job.
Yeah,
and,
it was
one
terrible.
whole floor, because they had no toilets working
Yeah.
on those upper floors. They shut on this one level of floor. Like it's all been painted, carpet and everything.
Yeah.
They were just shitting in the corner.
Yeah, fuck.
And this whole floor, man,
That's
this whole
disgusting.
floor was just you just skipped it. And it was like the 13th floor or something, man. You just skipped it. Everyone went like, ooh,
What the
no.
fuck?
Yeah,
We
Where?
went
had
to
a-
that floor to go
we-
to the
we-
toilet because it took too long to go further. They just all went there. It was closer.
Yeah, we had a
It's fucked up, man.
13 story job shut down because it was like all at the stage of like just pipes and like concrete and shit, and the roofers were coming down because they get paid like per fucking sheet they lay or whatever.
Yeah.
And so they, instead of going all the way like down 3 floors in the alley mac and then coming back up, they were just going down, opening the top off one of the like toilet pipes, squatting over it, taking a shit in the pipe, and then putting the cap back on. Then yeah, get this right. Then the plumber comes to go hook those pipes up. He starts at the bottom of the pipe.
Oh no!
Shit comes out everywhere.
Oh, that's
no.
so good.
So our whole site was shut down, and the fucking site foreman was just losing it. He's like, "I know who you are. You better come forward." Like if you don't come forward, then I'm gonna fucking sue you, cunts. Like our plumber got covered in shit. It was The Apprentice. Like,
That's what you get for being a plumber, though. Come on.
I'm gonna ask the real question here.
They waltz
Was
around
that you,
like that while they've been
Were you
covered.
one of those shitters?
yeah, well, I was getting paid by the beer.
Yeah, wait a sec.
By the meter.
You know this story rather well.
Yeah, well, I was being paid by the meter. I love that.
So there's like things that our brain just like fucking latch onto. Like if we get a certain stimulus, we instantly feel fear or pleasure, or we can think of a bunch of different examples of this. Like pornography, it gets more and more extreme. Like the media, the media seems to be getting like more and more fear-based. Everything is about, you watch anything about the like the bushfires last year. Was it last year? Or the start of like not last Christmas, the Christmas before, those big bushfires that happened.
Black
There was a-
Friday, yeah.
There was
Black Friday.
well, I think it was after that, but there was a thing where like they basically, without saying it, they were making out like the fires were so bad that they were just leaving people to burn in their houses. And it just wasn't fucking true. Like, but they didn't, they made it seem like that. And then instantly they turned from like the shot of a house burning to a woman standing there who's just been standing there the whole fucking time when they did this big read. and she's just in tears, and they're like, "How bad is it?" You're like, "No," and I was watching everybody else in the room, like my parents and like my family, because it's like Christmas time, and everyone's like, "Oh my God, I can't believe how bad it is," or whatever. It's like, come on, that's like one
But it
house
was
that's
bad,
burning.
though.
No.
But
Look. It might have
Did you see
been
the
bad.
video of the fire truck
Oh,
that got
heartless,
melted?
CK. Let's just.
So
It
heartless.
might have been bad. It might have been bad, but that's not the point. The point is that like that just straight up pulls at your heartstrings. You know what I mean? It's straight away.
Oh
Like, the
yeah,
only
yeah.
reason
It's
that they're-
worded specifically.
Yeah, but
Well,
The
you
only
wouldn't want to
reason-
make it.
Of
You
course.
wouldn't want to be a happy one, would you? You wouldn't want to be like,
Music playing or something.
you would be
Got
like, oh,
marshmallows
this
out
is
here.
so fucking funny.
Okay, you haven't met CK. You don't know CK at all.
Hey, he shits down pipes to fuck with farmers.
Yeah. No,
Yeah,
I
so
see
with
what you
that in
mean.
mind,
Over
CK.
dramatization, yeah, making a big deal out of nothing. But people did die. You can't discount that. It's pretty
Yeah,
fun.
no, for sure they did. But
Yeah.
I'm just saying that the way that the media was portraying it was that like this is like a tragedy that's happening right now, and the reason why they were doing that
Is
and
that a
why they
lie
were-
though?
Yeah, it definitely was in that case. They're like the way that they were saying it was that they were literally leaving people in their houses to burn, which was like definitely not the case. So this was like 2 years ago. It wasn't the Black Friday fires. They were definitely bad fires. It was when like northern New South Wales fucking was on fire.
Yeah.
How did those
Uh,
people
that's-
die then?
What was that? Sorry,
Did people die?
I'm sure some people did die, but like again,
We
I'm not
thought-
arguing
yeah,
that
few people,
point.
yeah, it was pretty bad.
But how did they
Yeah.
die if they weren't left to die? Like, how did they die if they weren't evacuated by authority?
Suicide,
Oh,
Paine.
don't even feel for their helicopter. Pardon?
Well, they got stuck in the fire. Like again, this is like not the point that I was trying to make, but okay.
Yeah, no.
Yeah,
So,
No, but like it was an
Same.
example. I know what you're saying. Like
Yeah.
you could have
well,
just
in that
used a
case,
better
right,
example.
don't you think
CK.
that then essentially that blue pill or whatever, if you want to look at it in that regard of a red and blue pill, wouldn't that like be kind of manufactured by the public? It doesn't have to be a nefarious like person at the top of the Illuminati or something. It's just like what sells basically is generating that blue pill effect. You know what I mean?
yeah, that's exactly right. And I
What
don't
people
think
like to watch and hear and see.
yeah,
and
because it's like
perpetuates it, sort of thing.
yeah, that's right. It's like using your emotional response because they can profit off that emotional
Manipulating
response.
you, yeah. Manipulating
right.
you.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so because you will definitely watch more of whatever that is
Of
if
course.
all of a sudden you feel like they're the real truth teller. This is the person who's providing the latest breaking news. Meanwhile, they're actually not in the heart of the fire reporting on that person that's just been burned alive. They're just standing there with a woman whose house is just burnt down, or who's a neighbor of the person that the house is burnt down, who's then just putting on tears for a camera. It's like it's this totally manufactured thing. But the reason why they're able to do that is because they're hitting these little these whatever the fuck it was called, like super physiological response, super normal stimuli, where if they can, it's the same thing with advertising. If they can show just for a second, you always see it with advertising, is like they have like a car, and even if it's like a family fucking car that they're advertising, there'll be one shot in it where the girl goes and just bends over slightly, and you'll just get a couple of frames of a tight ass, like putting a kid into the fucking car.
For real?
Yeah,
Yeah,
in every fucking ad.
I've never seen that before.
What?
But and this is the thing.
I've
and-
never
watched
Yeah.
Jeremy?
But this is the thing. A lot of the time you don't see it, but you still have that response.
Like Fox News a good example?
What was that?
Go on.
Isn't Fox News a good example? Like, don't they have a statement where any news they tell is not true? Or
Yeah,
I
so-
can't remember.
Yeah. So you're right. And so what that ruling was with Tucker Carlson. And so basically,
Yeah, Tucker Carlson.
so they tried to sue Tucker Carlson. Somebody tried to sue them, and they said basically, look, if you're watching this, you understand that this isn't news. you understand that this is an entertainment show. But that's not what they're calling it. It's on a fucking news network, right? And so the same thing happened with MSNBC recently, because Rachel Maddow was talking about how fucking like the Trump Russia shit, and then went on to say that, oh, you know, I can't remember what it was, something else to do with, oh, that was also a Russian conspiracy. And so those, oh, that's right, that's what it was. There's another network, and she said, oh, well, they're obviously working for the Russians because they were like supporting Trump, right? And so they in turn sued her, and then it was the same ruling. So this is like the left and the right. So it's not just like, you know, it's easy to say, oh, it's Fox News or whatever. It's like, yeah. But also MSNBC had the exact same ruling where the people that were the defense lawyers for Rachel Maddow came out and actually said, no. Anybody that's watching this show knows this isn't news. And this is two of the major four
That's
like news
the defense.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, you told me about that one too.
Yeah, but I mean, that's what I'm saying. It's not just the right wing. This is across the board.
What was the alternative? What's the blue side? If the red side's the whole Truman.
Well, I mean, the blue side is like, the blue pill is basically just like you believe everything that you come across, and for the longest time through history, like that was all that there was, and it's only now.
Where do you draw the line in the line in the sand with that? Like, you got to believe some stuff compared to all.
Yeah, and I think that's the big difference.
You look at all of history, you're just taking other people's words for everything.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that this is one of the areas where like the generation that's grown up with the internet is going to be like totally fucking different from what happened before. You know, like the concept that you just take everything that you see at face value, for us growing up with the internet, just isn't real. You know what I mean? Like, we know that you don't take things at face value, but literally everybody that's in charge grew up in an area, like in a time period where the only outlet for news was controlled by like 2 or 3 people, and that was the news. That was all you had. And so if you wanted to have a different opinion, like, you were a fucking crazy person. And now
independent news broadcasters.
But even back in the day, that was like not really a thing, man, because they couldn't exist because the money that you had to have to be able to do that. And they'd get bought out by these larger conglomerations of media. Yeah, exactly. Like Rupert Murdoch's a good example. Like that, you know, like the worldwide, like there's so many examples of this. But one of the big things is that in the modern age now, is that basically like we don't have that constraint. And so that's why I think we're seeing like a lot of the fucking dissent that is happening, where it's like so polarizing for a lot of people.
Yeah,
the thought while I was having a smoke was that the internet was like the greatest step in human evolution ever. It's like the ability for everyone will slowly become way more intelligent just purely by having means to education, like consistent.
I was just saying earlier that fucking, I love the internet that it's giving you like anything you can think to look up, you can fucking find it.
Yeah.
Like, you have access to almost the entirety of humanity's knowledge. You just need to know how to find it, you know?
And we were like right at the start of all that too, you know. So we know what it's like not to have that.
Yeah.
And to have that.
My general theory on it is basically that up until now, information's been so restricted. But like through time, like over probably only the last couple of 100 years. And one of the things that I think we need to like kind of realize is through history, like the progress has been like stagnant, basically. Like stagnation is like the normal thing. Like everything being the same is normal. But like we live in this time now, which it seems normal to us. because we grew up in this era where everything is changing all the time, and we have to like question all these different things.
Yeah, like we got to deal with way more shit because like our scope of like knowledge is so much broader than even just 50 years ago, sort of thing.
Yeah. So like look at farmers, dude. Like, you know, like in most people's lives, like even only 50 years ago were so much different to ours. And being like a child of the internet generation has like totally changed that, man. You know, like we're now at this point where like red pill is basically the new normal. Like the majority of people that have grown up with the internet don't accept that everything they're told is perfectly reasonable and is totally normal, and that, you know, oh no, the government says refugees bad. Oh, okay, well, we'll believe that. Oh, the government says refugees good. We'll believe that. Whatever it is, you know, like most people are now having to form their own opinions. But we're living in this transitional phase where the people that are in control of the media outlets that pass this information on are still from that older generation that didn't grow up with this shit. Most of these people grew up where there wasn't even fucking email, bro. Like there's these hilarious clips online where they talk about like, oh, email, huh, as if that's gonna catch on. You're like, you know what I mean? Like that was a real thought for like a while. Like,
I think we've all had to teach our parents how to use a computer the first time.
Yeah, so true.
So then, like, if that's the case, like, what are we moving into? Like, what is it that we're moving into? Because like we're still living in the structure, that old structure.
Yeah.
So like the structure that we're living in isn't okay to deal with the amount of change that we've had. And I think that we're seeing that destroying our society. You know, like a good example of that is that there's still riots going on in fucking Portland every night or every other fucking night. With like BLM versus the fucking you know, like, so like Antifa people versus the Proud Boys. And it's like these are two just like ideologies, and like one area of the news media is pushing one side of that, and the other side of the fucking news media is pushing the other side of that. It's like we're still living within this structure where like all these control mechanisms are from this old time. And so then like
Clearly they're still working though.
Yeah, and they definitely are.
Isn't that developing? Like,
well,
in
that's
all
right.
fairness.
Yeah, for sure.
Like,
yeah, I pay that, dude. I pay that, man. Like that's what.
Like, wouldn't you picture it all as like a machine? Like we've been doing it for long. That it's how it all flows and works. Like it's just natural for those elements to spring up and fall as well.
Yeah, dude.
Because strategy outcompeted every other one.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
Say
Like
that again, Chris.
It's always going to be a predator like Apex. Whatever fucking works the best is going to come out on top.
Yeah,
and everything's going to flow from that point forward. You know what I mean? Like if that's the limit, well then there's always going to be something straight after it that's going to.
Yeah, that's right. And so that's why I think we're seeing right now, we're seeing like this massive crackdown by governments around the world to try and censor the news. I think this is one of the big problems that the West has to like grapple with right now, is that there was this trade-off before where you could argue that the product of freedom was innovation, and the product of like totalitarianism was stability. So you have this trade-off in like, okay, well, we're going to go, we'll go a little bit this way, we'll go a little bit that way, but the West has generally like idealized the concept of freedom and liberty as the utmost highest value. And now we're moving to this place where you see like legitimate educated people more and more calling for censorship, more government control, because they don't want these dissenting voices. And like, yeah, that's fantastic if they're on your side. But if they're not, well, maybe it's not so fantastic. But it's not just that; it's also that you lose the byproduct of freedom is. Sorry, say again.
Just like real quickly there.
Yeah.
Like you say that they're doing these, like the added censorship and stuff is to stop dissenting voices.
Yeah.
You say that's their intent. But I think it's far more likely that their intent is to like try and get rid of some of the fucking noise from people who have no idea what they're actually talking about. And there's
I
like
agree with that too.
people who don't know what they're talking about, then do know what they're talking about. And so the actual truth and like information that people need to know gets drowned out. And
Yeah,
that's
okay. So we have
easy.
like good examples. We have like good examples of that though. Of like okay, so like let's look at how we think about truth, like the truth discovery. Like you understand the scientific method, which is that you have like a hypothesis.
This is the most accurate idea of reality that we have at this moment.
Yeah, it's the scientific method, right? And like how that works is that we introduce new ideas, and then we go through a process of vetting those ideas. And the problem with censorship is that ultimately, if at the point of hypothesis, we stop that conversation from happening because it disagrees with the mainstream narrative, then we never get to a new outcome, right? Which might be fine, which might be totally fine. And this is where that trade-off again comes in between freedom and liberty leading to innovation, and like totalitarianism leading to like stultification, leading to like entropy. Something that's not growing is dying. Something that's not changing is dying. So censorship,
like social media sites, people that are like posting stuff that either has no way of being proven or has been disproven, and yet they keep pushing it.
Yeah, and so the way I look at it anyway, and I'm not saying that this is like the act, like this is like 100% the like real way or whatever, but like the way that I look at it is, unfortunately, that's just a byproduct of everybody having a voice. But we need to have that voice there, because if we don't question whether what we're hearing and what we're seeing is the best way to do things, then we're going to end up in a situation where we're not looking at the best information. Does that make sense?
Yeah, but like human knowledge has gotten so fucking deep now that people fucking researching for a few days strictly cannot compete with people that have like studied something for a decade.
Yeah, okay, but what we're talking about though is that somebody that has researched something for a decade not being allowed to have an opinion because it might disagree with the mainstream.
No,
yeah, I think like literally both those two different means of whatever, like how we function, are like so open to corruption. Like both of those, like they're identically open to corrupt. You know what I mean? Someone could flood the idea, like the whole, like whatever, social media with misinformation, like through the means of not being, shut down or whatever. Censored. Yeah, thank you. And at the same time, if you're censoring things, it leaves the entire process up to like a handful of people to decide what is right and what is wrong. Like neither of those two options are
perfect. That's right. But my fundamental understanding is that like the lesser of two evils is still to maintain the liberty aspect of that, where everybody has the right to speak their mind. Because let's say that like one person is like, oh, actually, I am the person that's been studying this for fucking 50 years, and all of these other people are wrong. And that's the voice that gets censored, because that's not the one that goes along with the mainstream.
Well,
and then we don't end up having a solution to
And that Egypt fella is like a prime example of that, right? Like,
yeah,
What's-
exactly.
yeah, like
What?
that stuff does happen, definitely.
Well, like, where do you draw the line in the sand, though?
Well, I think the line in the sand comes to, like, for me anyway, to like absolute, like I'm like a free speech absolutist. Like that's just what I am, and I understand Chris has a different opinion.
No, but there's no free speech being censored there. It's like companies deciding that, like, what they do and do want posted on their sites, on their servers, you know? That's not a free speech thing.
And that's the thing. It's still an open market. It's not being ruled.
No, I
Like,
think
they don't Facebook, that, like, Facebook isn't charging anyone, you know what I mean?
CK is more talking about the idea of like censorship becoming way more prevalent, sort of thing.
Yeah, but what's actually being censored?
What do you mean? What's actually being censored? Like,
What information's being sent?
Like,
Okay,
that's not
so-
being censored. That's just some platforms deciding not to host that stuff.
Like, you'd still
So-
get access to it.
Yeah, like
Well,
that's
Through other means.
okay. Hold on. So you can still get access to it. That's a good point, right? You can still get access to it. So you can still get access to it if you don't use Google. You can still get access to it if your main avenue of like information doesn't come through Facebook.
yeah.
You can still get access to it if you're out there searching for that information. Okay. So but what we're really talking about though is, like, I suppose at that point is like these giant corporations working in conjunction with government entity.
Let's say cahoots, because it just sounds.
Cahoots. I almost said it. I was so close.
No,
to saying
you're
cahoots.
reaching for it.
I was like,
Like when-
conjunction. It's another C word that means the same thing. But like, this is where we're at. You know, like it's very easy to say that, oh no, it's a private company, but it's not a
Yeah.
fucking private company when the government is giving them directives.
Yeah.
But like when
Am I
the
wrong?
FBI
Am I wrong? No, that's a
Well,
government body.
their phones, man, and
Sorry,
Apple,
say again.
like the FBI tried to force Apple to put a backdoor into their phones, and they refused.
as far as you know.
Isn't that what the whole government thing with Google and Facebook and that, where they're making them pay, and they turned around and said, "Fuck you." Like, one of
Yeah.
them paid, and the other one's like, "Nah."
Yeah.
Facebook,
Okay.
Facebook didn't pay or something, and the
Yeah, but
government
they-
ended up going like, "Oh well."
Like, wait, you're not going to have us anymore because of your government's stupid laws that they're bringing in. And then we miraculously still have Google.
Yeah, well, I suppose, like, at the end of the day, I think that it's just like a fucking super interesting conversation.
Oh,
It's
yeah.
like, is where we're going with this, where we've been, and the fact that this is like ahistorical. Like, this is not a fucking normal thing.
Yeah.
that-
definitely.
Well, isn't everything
This
new?
is-
Really?
Oh no, there would have been like thousands.
No,
Okay.
definitely not, bro. Definitely not, man. Think about history. Think about how long humans have been around and how much change has happened.
Yeah.
Like, for them, a new thing would be like, oh fuck, we found a different area, and it's got slightly
Got a
different
new water
environment.
hole down here, brah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, I think we're heading to like a post-scarcity fucking society. Where we're
Yeah,
gonna
well,
feed-
let's save that for another podcast because I'll definitely argue that shit with you for sure.
Oh, the throwdown. The fucking
Yeah, you're
Cages.
I get it, man. I get it, Chris. You're a techno utopian. You think technology can solve all the world's problems, just more censorship. You're like a big China guy, right?
Wait, without technology, I would have died of a heart attack when I was 2 years old. So
Yeah,
I'm
but that doesn't
pretty-
mean that fucking that doesn't.
Yeah,
Anyway.
I'm all for fucking head in a robot body, mate.
yeah.
And like,
Like, I don't know why you're
So,
fighting
and this is
against
the thing, right?
Okay.
So that's blue pill perspective. Blue pill perspective is like fucking. Let's go.
Robot body.
I'm ready to be the head in a vat. I'm ready to be the
Language.
head in a
Yeah,
vat.
I am. Put me up.
Put me in the
Why is
time.
that blue pill, man? Why is that blue pill? That's ultimate
think-
red pill.
No, think about it from the Matrix perspective, right? Do you want to be that? Do you want to be the body in the fucking tub? in the fucking like whatever it was cocoon, just getting your fucking lifeblood
Be
harvested.
gel, I believe, my
Nah,
friend.
my consciousness gets downloaded into one of those sentinels, and I'm like fucking flying around the galaxy, just fucking cunts up, snapping at them.
I don't know if you've watched the movie Matrix. That's not what happened.
Wait,
bro.
fuck off. Look at this.
He could fly, my friend. He could fly and shoot.
Yeah, but
lasers.
That
And then
proves
he
I
had
know
a
the
sidekick
Matrix.
Wolverine and fucking is mad.
I think in the future, for one, like the blue pill, it won't be like controlled, or I mean, it might be controlled by like some kind of totalitarian, you know what I'm saying, rule.
Yeah.
But I think it's more likely to be like self-imposed by society, and then, but then also I think the red pill, the entire fact that like the concept of that red pill exists is like totally, of course, part of the blue pill. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah, like, anyway.
It just furthers like the like agenda of the blue pill. Like the blue pill's like, hey, there's these fucking people out there that think that they're red pilled or whatever.
Oh, dude, it's always going to be that. There's always going to be opposition. That's my whole take on it. It's like you could go.
Well, there always has to be. There has to be.
You're always going to accept and decline what you want and believe. And tradition's a huge part of it, but at the end of the day, it's what you take, and there's always going to be that opposition. It's just human nature.
Yeah, exactly, man. There has to be. You know what I mean? There has to be an opposition. But I think, yeah, definitely, like, the whole red pill concept could be just a manufactured fucking concept by the overarching blue pill theme of the human race.
Big pharmacy.
Self-generated blue pill that the human race is. We're just a giant machine that are trying to like press out into the universe, and it's like perpetuating itself in whatever way works the best at that time to like better itself as chances of like expanding through the universe.
I like that, Mick. That was a good way to fucking like sum that up.
Yeah,
it's like that was sweet. What's your take on it, Chris?
I think the whole red pill, blue pill thing is a false dichotomy, kind of designed to make people that are on the red pill side look like the logical side without anything really backing it up besides snide assertions. I'm not a fan of the whole red pill, blue pill thing. I don't know if that was clear.
I didn't pick that up at all, man.
Okay. I had an inkling. It's when I
That's
see
only
it
because
in your
you
face.
know each other.
My bad.
Yeah, so I mean, I suppose I just think of it, Chris, as like a way to like a way to talk about things, because like it's like to have a conversation is to like hopefully come across like new information.
Yeah,
and
but
so,
I
like,
don't.
it's a good tool. Like in my mind, it's a good tool, and that's why I wanted to do this like podcast, and that's why I ended up coming to the red pill. It like took me ages to like try and get to, because originally I was going to do it on the open window, and like that's part of this conversation.
Yeah.
But
I knew there was a fucking window in that subject. I knew there was a window thing. I couldn't remember what the fuck.
Well played, sir.
Is that like questioning things isn't a red pill, blue pill thing. It's the scientific method.
Sorry, can you say that again, dude?
Like questioning things isn't a red pill thing. It's the scientific method. And not only people that take the red pill question things.
Yeah, so I think that the problem, okay, so I think the problem is like I'm not talking about it from like a political perspective, and this is why I didn't do the Overton window, is because it has these like massive political connotations, because it's like literally political theory.
Yeah.
So like that's why I didn't want to do the Overton window, because I don't want to talk about it in terms of politics. That's why I wanted to like bring red pill back to like the Matrix definition, not the like Trump versus fucking Hillary.
You can do it on
like,
everything. That's
thing.
the whole thing, man. It's not
But
one
my point.
whole
But my point is.
definition.
But my point is that it was just that, like, for me, it's just a constructive, like, tool for conversation to be able to talk about. Like, it's a framing. It's just a way to frame the conversation. And,
Yeah,
like, that
I guess
was
I disagree with the framing.
okay.
Yeah, I think that's just a
Should I not frame?
No.
Stop
good to
framing
question.
things, CK.
Stop trying to have a conversation.
Like, I have a bias against that particular framing.
Yeah, because you're blue pill, man. Because
Oh.
you're like a
Y'all
you're a
just
big
got blue
dick.
pill, bitch.
Yeah, because you're like,
Can I change? I want to change what I agree on. I don't want blue or red pill if that's the case.
and I think
want,
that this
like,
is
a
I think
purple
that this
pill?
is the thing.
Yeah.
I think
Purple,
that-
yellow, purple pills.
Yes,
No.
I'll go the blue and yellow. I'll go the blue and yellow anytime, and that's why I was trying to keep it away from.
You told me
Like
white pill the other week. And I was like, what the fuck is the white pill now? Yeah, there's more
Yeah.
pills.
There's way more pills.
I'm
Fred.
sick of all these fucking pills. And why
That's
doesn't
big
this have
pharmacy.
technically, or is it all the colors? I can't remember.
Big pharmacy at it again, mate.
Oh
Yeah, just like-
shit!
Big
Wait,
pharmacy
who was Big
in
Pharmacy?
cahoots with D12.
It was too. Paine was Big Pharma. You fuck. Oh, he tried to get us again. Well,
Classic big pharma guy. Don't talk about the pills, guys.
In cahoots
Don't
with
worry about it. It's
D12,
fine.
mate.
It's fine. They're all fine.
He's in cahoots with D12 and Eminem.
No,
Wait,
but like,
so
yeah,
you
I
think
get what you're
it's
saying, Chris, and I totally agree, man.
I'm
I definitely totally agree with you that like there is other ways to talk about these exact same things, but like try and encapsulate it so that we can like cover a bunch of different topics, like all in the same thing. For me, was a really hard thing to try and do.
Yeah.
To like have like a topic where we could talk about all these different things. It's like the only thing that I could kind of really come up with was the pills version of it, you know, because it's like an easy. It's like I wanted to talk about fucking China. I wanted to talk about a bird experiment. I wanted to talk about Doritos.
What's the bird experiment?
So the bird experiment is fucking super interesting, right? So they take this this bird that has
I'm bored. It's okay.
Oh, fuck. What a dick move.
You're such a
Oh,
cunt.
such a dick.
I suppose like it's just like do you want to be in charge of the manipulation? Like, do we want to have a say in it? Like, do you want to be like, and this is the whole like concept of like
Oh, fuck yeah, I do.
What could
Yeah,
you
like-
say about it? What do you know about the actual physical
Make some
effect?
cool stop motion of atoms. Like, don't just do stupid shit, you know? Do something cool
No,
with
but-
it.
I mean, like, what?
Mick, you can't be trusted with that power. You send us on that group chat.
That
Oh,
discussion.
go on, Chris. What'd you say?
Like
Sorry.
any of it, like what meaningful contribution could we make to that discussion to a group of scientists that can manipulate atoms? Like, how could we help in any regards? to
Well,
that?
I'm not talking. Oh, but I'm sorry. Okay, sorry. Maybe you misunderstood. Maybe you misunderstood like what I was saying.
I'll
Like,
clean that toilet.
I wasn't talking about like telling a scientist how to fucking split an atom. I was talking about like the collective consciousness defines what will or will not happen. Like in a way, or at least in part, right?
You do
Like, would
need
you
that
agree with that? Would you agree with that?
significant change. Yeah.
You would agree with that, yeah. So like significant change only happens if people allow it to happen, basically.
Yeah, if there's enough like social momentum.
Yeah, exactly. And this is kind of why I want to talk about the open window a little bit, because like, you know, like that kind of is part of it. So like, you know, that political change or like that's like like societal change only happens like when people are actually okay with it happening. And so it is actually the conversations that we have day to day and the way that we frame the world to each other that articulates the other person's internal monologue. It changes the way that they think, and like you can spread that through a society. Like that's how concepts like socialism or capitalism or like all of these things came to be, was because it was like became the idea of the day.
Yeah, it's like
So
how
like
country-
so like the concept that like, oh, we should just then have no interest because there's experts is like, well, no, I want to actually be able to like have like conversations about this stuff and like
You do get that opportunity
and-
though.
and have some kind of say, even if it is like only in the ultimately limited way that I can possibly have that.
yeah,
that's
like
fair.
I've had like more of a knee-jerk reaction to people like talking about stuff they're not qualified about. Like, because Australia got it pretty fucking good through this whole COVID thing. Like, even still, having to wear masks everywhere, but that's nowhere near as bad as, what is it, 600,000 people died in America alone?
I don't
From
really like. Yeah, like we can talk about COVID if you want, man, but this is
Nah,
not something
let's
that I
not.
really
Fuck
wanted
that.
to.
Like, I'm just using that as like a most recent example of people like,
I
completely-
really like. There's a bunch
like-
of times where I could have talked about COVID, but I didn't because of this exact reason. Where I was
Yeah,
like, oh, it's not.
my
This
bad.
is like, yeah,
Yeah.
it's just not like a. Yeah. But like you can find another
So
example. Like,
boys,
just,
I
like,
gotta
talk
go
about it.
anyway. I'll talk to you later.
See you, Carl. Have a good one, mate.
yeah, well, my phone's about to die anyway.
Love you. Bye.
This is
Fuck off already.
wait, no, it was a good one. CK, I enjoyed that. Talk to you later.
Eventually, we got there.
Eventually.
The greatest podcast in the world. The greatest podcast in the world. Look at the boy bands.
Friday nights.
Rules that were available. Rules that were available.
Friday nights.
Rules.
Look at the boy bands.